A couple of weeks ago, Turo laid off 15% of their workforce, in a move that rightfully so has worried some Turo hosts. And so in this video, I'm going to be breaking down whether or not this is a sign that there are some troubles in the Turo waters, and ultimately what you can do in order to prepare as a Turo host. So let's get started. Last month, Turo announced that they were letting go 15% of their staff, which equates to about 150 people, and they did this due to, and I quote, economic uncertainty. And a couple of months prior to that, Turo pulled out of their long-standing IPO plan, a move that left many Turo hosts a bit worried about the future. So let's first address this IPO. Now, I did make a standalone video about Turo's IPO, why they pulled out, and ultimately what it meant whenever it originally happened at the beginning of this year. So I'm not going to do a deep dive here in this video. The reality is that while it isn't good news that Turo has pulled out of their IPO, it definitely isn't rare in this current state of economic uncertainty either. When Turo pulled out of their IPO, it was shortly after two major negative events that happened with Turo vehicles, bringing bad press to the company. But it was also at a time where the stock market is sort of a mess. The idea of waiting to go public until the perfect time and then pulling out on those plans because of a variety of factors, it really isn't all that rare in the world of IPOs. While Turo pulling out of an IPO certainly isn't rare in the world of IPOs, nor is it a sign the failure is on the horizon, I'm also not delusional, and I will admit that it doesn't look great either. You see, whenever Turo announced their move and intention to go public, it was really a different time. They were riding the high of COVID, people were driving instead of flying, people had a lot of cash, and the rental car shortage and car market implosion truly formed the best case scenario for Turo and Turo hosts. It was a pivotal time for the company, but it was also a relatively unsustainable one. And while I'm sure Turo hoped that this period of time would springboard the company into continued all-time highs, it really isn't what ended up happening, and Turo continues to struggle with many of the same things that they've always struggled with: profitability and claims. And this, paired with the fact that the stock market is not great, it really isn't a good time to go public. In fact, according to a study, about 25% of all IPO filings pull out. So while the majority of companies who move to go public do in fact go public, pulling out isn't exactly rare either. The next thing that I want to discuss is Turo layoffs. As I mentioned, within the last couple of weeks, Turo announced that they had laid off 15% of their workforce, and while the news became public relatively recently, it does seem as though these layoffs seem to have happened earlier this year. And while if you're anything like me, then this Turo layoff really didn't come as a surprise at all. Because in my opinion, the writing was on the wall the moment that Turo announced that they were scaling back and making it harder to achieve All-Star Host and Power Host. You see, as many of you may know, last year Turo announced that they would be changing the criteria needed in order to achieve All-Star Host and thus in order to achieve Power Host. And as a result of this, many hosts no longer received the benefits that they once did. Things like tire reimbursements, better ranking, but most importantly, Power Host support and having the ability to have a host success manager. Prior to the shift last year, it was extremely easy to get All-Star Host and Power Host, which meant that a lot of people had things like Host Success Manager and Power Host support. And as a result of Turo changing these policies last year, less people are becoming All-Star Host and Power Host, and thus there is less of a need for many of these perks, most notably Power Host support and a Host Success Manager. And so the need for Power Host support reps and Host Success Managers, well, they went down. And what happened to all of those workers? While I have heard that some of them have transitioned to new roles within Turo, I've also heard that many of them are amongst the ones that were let go. And so by Turo changing All-Star Host and Power Host requirement and thus lowering the amount of people that qualify, they basically lowered the need for a large segment of their own employees. So the fact that Turo did these layoffs after they changed this policy, at least to me, it really wasn't a surprise at all. But similar to the IPO, while this isn't good news, I mean layoffs never are, it's also, at least in my opinion, not indicative of a Turo bankruptcy coming soon. According to Layoff FYI, 51,000 people have been laid off by tech companies in 2025, with some companies laying off thousands, like Intel, who laid off 22,000 workers this year. The reality is, in this day and age, in this economic situation, layoffs are not a rare thing, especially in the tech sector. And so similar to an IPO, I don't think that layoffs are indicative of some doom and gloom scenario either. But, I don't want to view this entire situation through rose-colored glasses. Because the reality is, while I do firmly believe in Turo's future, I also don't think that Turo is too big to fail either. One conversation that I frequently hear in the context of Turo and kind of what's going on with the company is something to the effect of, oh, well, this is what happened with Getaround. First they did layoffs and they changed policies and they just closed down. And I've been Turo host for a long time, and over the years, I have seen a ton of car sharing platforms come and go, from Avail to Getaround, Hire Car, even some that were created by large automakers like General Motors' Maven program. And so I have been able to witness firsthand not only how these companies have performed in comparison to Turo, but also the events that led up to their ultimate demise. And in the case of Getaround, which I think is the most comparable example to Turo, it was just different than anything we've ever experienced with Turo. I used to be a host on Getaround, and the app felt much less refined. It was extremely difficult to get a hold of anyone, payouts would be delayed if you were lucky to get one at all, the process of onboarding was clunky and convoluted. It was just different, especially in the last 6 to 8 months of Getaround's operation. And I'm just a firm believer that Turo is in a completely different spot, and the comparison between the two companies just isn't really there. But going back to my rose-colored glasses comment and the fact that I don't believe that Turo is too big to fail, the truth is Turo isn't immune to many of the other factors that cause these other platforms to die. Claims, insurance, logistics, profitability. These are all issues that are still very real problems for Turo, and they must get them sorted out. And some of the many ways that they're doing this is by scaling back on host programs, by letting go workers, and maybe hunkering down a bit as everyone is waiting to see what happens economically. Now, I obviously don't have any insight into Turo that you guys watching don't have. I know that some people believe that I have like an inside source or an inside plug, but that's not the case. I wish it was, but it isn't. But what I can say is that from a host perspective, we've been crushing it. Demand has been insanely high, and our daily rate on vehicles has increased by 20 to 30% thanks to Turo's pricing policies implemented last year, which is a silver lining in some of the other negative aspects that Turo hosts talk about. And while I don't have a Turo-specific plug, I do have some really cool insights into the car sharing community that maybe the general public doesn't have, and what I can say is that there's a lot of cool things coming for car sharing. And though I can't talk about it in detail today, I will talk about it in the future. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that I am extremely bullish on Turo, but I'm even more bullish on car sharing as an industry. I am actively growing my own fleet. In fact, we just added a car this week, and I think car sharing is here to stay. And as far as layoffs, policy changes, and IPOs go, it sucks, but it's part of business. Adapt, pivot, and grow. I believe that's what Turo's doing, and it's what we as hosts need to do as well. Now, if you guys are interested in starting and scaling your own Turo and car sharing business, then I do have the car sharing masterclass, which is a full-fledged course that teaches you every single thing that you need to know about starting and scaling a car sharing fleet with the same business model that I use. In the course, we go over how to buy below market value cars with cash, how to automate your systems and processes to turn your fleet into a semi-passive fleet. You'll gain access to a ton of documents and resources that we've made to help you grow your fleet, and you'll be invited to our private Discord group and our monthly Zoom calls. And one of the best parts is that whenever you're a member of the car sharing masterclass, it's lifetime access, and so whenever we update the course, you get access to that as well. In fact, we have a 3.0 iteration of the course coming out this August, which will come with some major updates, so if you buy the course today, you'll gain access to that when it's released in August. You can use the code OFFER100 to get $100 off. Click on the link down in the description below. So there you guys have it, my thoughts on what's currently going on with Turo. My thoughts on Turo really haven't changed. I am still as bullish as ever, and you can check out on my vlog channel that my team and I are actively growing our fleet every single week, so we don't have really any reservations for our own growth, and I don't think that you guys should either. Like always, you guys, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video.